Today I talk about changing a stubborn teammate's playstyle, plateaus, like skill plateaus, and what to do when your team's morale is low. Welcome to Mind Games TV, episode 60. I'm so excited today. You might notice I have a new background. I'm back at the university and I've stolen one of these fun rooms that has all sorts of like cool stuff in it. I don't know if you can see here. Fat boy pillows, big screen TV, standing tables. It's pretty awesome. Sorry about the shaky tour there. And I have an exciting show. People are asking questions on Twitter again, so thank you so much for those of you who tweeted. Thank you for those of you who went to mindgames.gg/TV. I have a request for all of you watching. Go ask a question for the show. Okay, I'm not asking anybody for money. I'm not asking anybody for time. I'm not even asking you to share the show. This show runs on people. The oxygen for the show is questions. And so my one cry for help and my one request is that everybody goes after getting this show and just like go and ask a question. Think of something that's troubling you and put it out there. Use hashtag #AskWeldon on Twitter or on Instagram, or just go to mindgames.gg/TV and there's a form there that goes right to the thing. So thank you for those of you who are doing that, and let's get into it.
Alfonso asks, how do you change the play style of your stubborn teammate?
Okay, this is a real good question because I feel like it's what I have to deal with most on pro teams is they come in and they were like, well, I just want to know, like, how can I change my teammates? How can I change my teammates? How can I change my teammates? I'm not going to, never mind. I was going to say a really bad quote, but I just realized there's a swear word in it, so I'll pass on that. I think that a lot of people, it's really easy to see faults with other people. It's really hard to see faults with ourselves. And so it's a lot easier to fix other people first before we tackle ourselves. And I think that these kind of questions come up. And they're really good and valuable questions because there's two answers. One is to, well, first fix yourself. But then that's the cop-out answer. So I'm also going to talk about how do you actually change the play style of a teammate that is stubborn to it, that is stubborn. So how would I go about doing that? I think the first thing that I would do is I would listen. I would get really good at listening because most of the time stubbornness is not stubbornness. It's just the desire to be shown that they were heard. Okay, so the first step to changing somebody's mind is to get them into a compliant state of mind, is to get them into a state of mind where they're listening. If they're not listening, automatic stop. Like nothing is going to get through to them, right? So in order to engage in a conversation, you have to be the first one to listen. You have to listen and you have to say things that show that you're listening. Like, wow, that sucks. Or, oh my gosh, you're so right. Or show me and go over and like watch and have them walk you through it. And then, agree with all of the points that you agree with that are kind of isolated, or at least agree with their experience of the moment. So you're listening and listening and listening. Okay? And then you can actually start worming your way into their mindset. So you can ask questions like, what if it were this way? And I like to use the inception idea. So I like to give them the idea and have them come up with it. So instead of saying, like trying to argue against people and provide logical arguments, I try to ask questions and say like, what if this? And when they come up with like, an example, you can provide a counterexample, or you can not provide a counterexample and get into the argumentative mode, and you can just ask another question and take them out to the point of the fallacy in their logic, where they kind of realize themselves that it's kind of not going so well. And at that point, you don't really need to do anything. They know that it's kind of like not true, and they're already thinking about it, and you don't need to argue the point. You can just like walk off and let them reflect about it for a day. And a lot of times that thing will worm its way in and they'll start thinking about playstyle changes. The other thing you can do is really concrete. You can actually reward when they do the correct playstyle and not ever punish it. So if you want somebody to play more fearlessly and less recklessly, so you want them to like take more risks, but the smart risks, and take less of the dumb risks, then you have to make sure that you never punish fearlessness because it just encourages them not to do it. And you have to be sure that you reward them when they are fearless, even if it doesn't go so well, and not reward them when they're reckless and things like that. So you can kind of get in with the Skinnerian style training where you're thinking in terms of reinforcement. Okay, that's that question.
Anonymous asks, how do I stop from capping out at a certain skill level?
So this is about skill plateaus, and I think the person was talking about like climbing from a really low ELO to a really high ELO, but then it's not high enough. It's not, challenger. It's not top of the ladder, and they're frustrated because they get better every week and then worse again, and might go up and down. So plateaus is what I'm all about. This is basically sports psychology 101, because plateaus have to do almost essentially completely with the mind. Very few areas in life are we limited by physical plateaus, and in esport it doesn't make sense at all. Like, how could you possibly be limited by your aerobic capacity, your VO2 max, your height, like things like that? So everything in esport is mental learning. And the first thing to do is to know that growth slows. So if you go from, like, for example, bronze 5 to diamond 5, you can do it really rapidly. If you want to go from diamond 5 to diamond 1, it's going to come slower, because essentially when you're training new things from bronze 5 to diamond 5, you're training a lot of new things. Everything you do is new. But then when you hit diamond 5 and you're training to challenger, a lot of the stuff that you do in the game is repetition. So like you walking from base to lane, you're probably doing that the same as when you were in silver. And it's really hard to optimize. It's really hard to make that slightly better. What about buying things? Like, how fast do you buy things from the shop? It's really hard to like speed that up and optimize it, but that's like a little bit here. So those have a smaller effect on the game, and they're harder to optimize because you're doing them over and over again and you've kind of already learned them. So the small incremental growth is less. And the second thing that happens is that people go through cycles. So you grow, and then you get afraid of the proving that you actually got to that point, and so you start taking less risks and start trying to maintain your rank and start trying to show that you belong where you belong, and then growth slows down because you're not in the right mindset. So you need to maintain a growth mindset instead of a fixed mindset. And all you need to do is Google growth versus fixed mindset on Google, or you can go to mindgames.gg/growth. Now, if you're watching this like in January or in February 2015, early, I probably haven't put this up yet, but I promise that by the end of this weekend, I will have it up. So mindgames.gg/growth, mindgames.gg/growth, and you can get my download packet on growth mindset versus fixed mindset with a graphic kind of explaining what's going on there and a couple tasks that I usually guide professional teams through in how to get to from like a fixed to a growth state of mind. So go check that out, mindgames.gg/growth. And that is my number one thing for how I kind of like promote people to break through plateaus.
Beached Fortress asks, what do I do when team morale is low?
The way that I've tackled this on, for example, CLG is when there's a kind of communication you have when you're ahead, and it's like, I'm strong, or I'm good, or like, don't quit, like, look, I can carry this. And that's no fun for anybody. That's no fun for all the people who are losing. They're like, okay, great, so you get to carry us, woo. It feels like crap to not be carrying a game. It feels like you want to quit the game you're doing so that you can go to the next game and carry that one. You don't want to like sit through a game and be carried and be the reason that everybody's losing, but like the reason that everybody's striving to win is because you're sucking it up. So you have to think about it from their perspective. What do they want to hear when they're the ones who are behind? You want to hear that they're adding value to the game and that their effort is worthwhile. So the thing that I would say is, instead of communicating things like, I'm strong, I can do this, we can carry, like, we got this, you should be rewarding them for the sacrifices they make. Be like, hey, while you were like drawing attention mid lane, like I was able to get really ahead top. So because of your play, I am now able to be strong. And so if we team up, like, we'll be equal. Or you say things like, hey, like I've noticed that the other mid laner is like super overconfident or something like that, and they're making lots of more mistakes now. So we can get back in this game. Or you can just like talk to it from their perspective in terms of like what they want to hear that they have a valuable contribution. And you can even give them jobs. Like, leadership is kind of about giving jobs. So if you like ask somebody to do something, and then if you make every single effort possible to make sure that when they go and do it right there, that they get a positive reward out of it. So if you're like, hey, you're really behind, but like, can you spare like a little bit of money for a pink ward and get it right there? And we can make something out of this. We can get you back ahead. And they do it, and you just have to sit there, and get them ahead. They feel like they're contributing. Or you say like, hey, can you help us set up for Dragon or something like that? Get everybody on a mission and do everything you can to make that mission successful, and then that carries in. If you can't make the mission successful, then you might not be able to recover the team morale. And that's just the way that like things decay and they go badly. But if you can get that turnaround point, and if you can convince people to work for it, and then if you can reward that work by like getting the momentum back there, the mental momentum that they feel on a team as a group headed toward a goal, you can get them into a scrappy underdog mentality. And that's a really fun place to compete in if everybody's on the same page. The other thing you can do is like engineer a vote. You can be like, how many of you really want to play like a scrappy underdog mentality, kind of play from behind? We can do this like extended endurance game where we prove that we have what it takes. And you can say like, raise your hand if you do. Like the most of the bad voices out here are people just who don't have that mindset and are just whining. So is there anybody on this team who's been silent, but they really want to play and they want to play hard with me? And you can find out that like 3 or 4 of the people on the team want to do that, and the whiner is the only one who's kind of off on their own, and they might kind of come around at that point. So those are the tactics that I would try in solo queue for raising team morale. Okay, so I want to end with a quote, and my quote today is from Marcus Aurelius, who is a Stoic philosopher and general, and it's kind of about what we talked about today in terms of mindset versus reality versus truth. So here we go. Everything we hear is an opinion, not a fact. Everything we see is a perspective, not a truth. Thank you, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. And I want you to follow my Snapchat because I am putting announcements there all the time about future things. So find my Snapchat, follow my Snapchat. You can hear announcements about stuff. This is probably all going to be muted by my editor anyway, so you're not going to hear what I'm saying right now, but